Hello, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Becca and today I'm recommending some books that are going to make you cry. So, as you may know by now, I'm going to be a co-host of Sobathon, which is a readathon all about reading those books that are going to make you super emotional. If you haven't seen my announcement video, I will link it up above and I will have in my description box all of the hosts, all of the challenges, the dates and everything else you need to know. I feel like I need to preface this video by saying that I'm not a book crier, so this is more of a list of books that made me really emotional. I have, I think, 18 to recommend to you. And like I said, I don't really cry during books, but I think that these are either really sad or have a lot of emotional impact that will make you book criers out there cry like a baby. So this video is going to be split into 3 sections. The first one is going to be books that will fulfill the challenge to read a book under 300 pages. The next section will just be books that I find really emotional or sad to help you fulfill some of the other challenges for Sobathon. And then the last set are books that I think are very emotional but that you may not want to read for a readathon, because they are books in a series. I am also only going to be recommending books that I have read myself. There are a lot more cry-worthy books out there and I recommend you check out all of the other host videos because we do have very different reading tastes, but these ones are just going to be the books that I have read and personally find very emotional. So let's just get into it. First up, I'm going to be showing you the books that will fulfill the challenge to read a book under 300 pages. And the first one of these will be any of the Saga graphic novels by Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples. This is the sci-fi graphic novel series that's kind of Romeo and Juliet set in space, and it's about these 2 people from different planets who fall in love and each planet sends mercenaries after them, and you follow not only these 2 and their child, but you follow the mercenaries that are sent after them. There is a lot of death in this series, a lot of people getting separated, reunited. It's definitely very emotional, and if you like graphic novels and haven't tried this yet, I recommend you give it a read. And I also think it's a great starting point for people who haven't read a graphic novel before. However, do be warned that if this is the first graphic novel you read, the bar is going to be set really high, so finding something to compare to it is going to be difficult. Next I have The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. You may have seen the film of. The film is absolutely excellent, so I would recommend you both read the book and watch the film. And it is about a boy who is writing a letter to somebody who he knows who has died about his life at high school. He makes friends with a bunch of seniors and he kind of has the best time of his life, but he's not really somebody who likes to get involved. So he's more of on the fringes and it's about his observations of people and the people that he's friends with, and I think that this book is absolutely phenomenal. It's just over 200 pages, so it's a perfect quick read and it is so moving, so good, and I think you'll love it. It also deals with mental health. I can't say whether the representation is accurate because I myself haven't dealt with any of these issues, and also I read it a really long time ago, so mental health representation probably wasn't something I was thinking about when I was reading this. Then we have If I Stay by Gail Forman. This one is about a girl who is taking a road trip with her family one day and she is a musician. She's going to go to Juilliard, is it? In New York, a music school. And on the road, she gets into a car crash with her family and her parents die. She's in a coma and she has to decide whether or not she wants to come back and live or whether she wants to die and join her family. I don't feel like I need to say much more about it than that. It's self-explanatory why it's emotional and it's going to make you cry, but I absolutely love this and it's a nice, short, quick little read. Another one that I don't actually own that I'd like to recommend is We Were Liars by E. Lockhart. This is about a girl who summers on an island. Her family is really rich. Every year they go there in the summer and she meets her cousins. She hasn't been, I think she didn't go for 1 year, and none of her cousins have been in contact with her, so she's really hurt by this. When she returns the following summer, she sort of asks them what's up, why they haven't been in contact with her, and they're really indirect about it. The reason that this is emotional is that it is a plot twist, which I can't reveal. I recommend you go into it not really knowing very much. I will also say about this that people find the prose really hard to deal with. It's written in a very odd style and is poetic in places, so if you want something that's a little easier to digest, maybe give We Were Liars a miss. So next I'm moving on to the books that I just generally find emotional and I think will be perfect to read for this readathon, mainly for the challenge to read a book that you've been avoiding because it'll make you too emotional. The first one of these is a book that I don't own, and that's Invictus by Ryan Groden. This is a sci-fi about time travelers, and it is about a young man whose mother was a time traveller and she got sort of lost in time and never came back one day, and so he wants to be a time traveller to follow in her path. However, he does fail his exam and instead becomes some sort of time travelling space thief employed by this criminal to steal artifacts from ancient Rome and places like that. Once again, can't say why it's emotional, but you will be tearing up by the end of this. Another one that I've recently unhauled is How I Live Now by Meg Rosoff. This book I thought was very good, however I personally found it very triggering and I didn't want to read it again, so I have unhauled it now. And it is about a young American girl who goes to live with her family in the UK. She's really resistant, she doesn't want to go, but she makes great friends with her cousins, and then a war breaks out. The story of this is that terrorists invade the UK and shut it off from its own armed forces, and it is about what this means for the residents of the UK. I personally find this very triggering because the thought of a terrorist threat in the UK is a very, very real threat. When the Manchester Arena was bombed, like, Manchester's my home city, and so the thought of terrorism in this country really does scare me. Very emotional, very difficult to read, so I would recommend this. I did think it was a good book. However, if you are in the UK or terrorism is something that really upsets you, maybe give this one a miss. Next we have Heartless by Marissa Meyer. This is a Queen of Hearts origin story. Not the best book of Marissa Meyer's, but I still really enjoyed it. It does capture the whimsical nature of Wonderland, and it is about a young girl called Kath who by the end of the novel is the Queen of Hearts. She's a really sweet, nice girl who loves baking, who's been born into sort of nobility and doesn't want what her parents want for her. She wants to open a bakery, and it's about the turn of events that turns her into the horrible, nasty, murderous Queen of Hearts. So obviously you know what the end of this book is going to be, but all the time while you're reading it you're wishing that this character will have something different, like a different outcome, even though you know it's not going to happen. So obviously this is going to be emotional because something turns this lovely, sweet girl into a vicious, murderous evil queen. Don't really need to say much more about it than that. It's not heavily emotional, so it's not really deep and gritty and deals with dark issues. However, it is a nice, fun little fantasy read and it may bring you to tears at the end. Next we have a few by one author, the first one being The Fault in Our Stars, and I don't really need to tell you, but it is about a young girl who has cancer and she meets a boy at a cancer support group and they fall in love and things ensue. Then we have Looking for Alaska, which is about a guy, I think he goes to like a summer camp and he kind of has a boring life, but then he meets this girl who's like wild and passionate and rebellious and everything he wants to be. And then we have Turtles All the Way Down. Obviously you know these are all by John Green. This is about a girl who knows the son of a billionaire and the billionaire goes missing and there's a reward to find him, so her and her friend go to investigate. However, while that is the plot, the main theme of this story is that the girl has anxiety and she does really struggle with that. I have heard that this is excellent anxiety rep. I can't speak for it myself, but I have also heard that it is extremely triggering for those of you who are struggling with anxiety. So if you feel like you're not in a good place to read this, then I would give it a miss. However, if you feel like you can read this and be absolutely fine, I would highly recommend it. It was difficult to read in parts even for me, but I still think that it was very powerful and I've heard it's very accurate and I actually kind of love this story. So if you have yet to read any of these John Green books, I would recommend you pick them up for the readathon. Then we have one that I personally found very emotional and it's one of my favourite books. However, it is kind of long, so if you're a really quick reader, maybe pick this up. And that is Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. This is a heartbreaking, beautiful, tragic, brutal story about a guy who is a librarian and he's obsessed with this mythical city that lost all contact with the rest of the world 200 years ago. He loves fairy tales, he loves folklore, and he just wants to find out what happened to this city. Not really going to tell you anything else about it, but I will tell you it is emotional, it is heart-wrenching. It's gonna pull at your feels for all the different reasons. You may cry with happiness because this is such a beautifully written book, but you may also cry because your heart is broken and you'll struggle to pick up the pieces off the floor. So I'll just leave this one with you. Like I said, it is kind of hefty, but it's fantastic. Next we have The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. This is one of the ones that isn't really heartbreaking at the end, so you may cry with happiness when you get to the end because it does have more of an uplifting note. However, in the first few chapters of this, the main character's best friend does get shot. That's not a spoiler, that's kind of what the book is about. This book is about the Black Lives Matter movement, and there is a young girl named Star who goes to a party and her friend gives her a lift home. They are both black individuals, and on the way home a policeman stops them and shoots her friend because he thought that he was reaching for a gun when really what he had in his door pocket was an afro comb. I found myself tearing up and I would highly recommend that you read this in the audiobook because I think it adds to the narrative and really completes the story. There is a lot of African American slang. It's not slang technically, but lots of words and references that I wouldn't really have understood or been able to process had I not listened to the audiobook. So if you can get hold of an audiobook for this, I would recommend it. It'll also make your reading throughout the week a little bit easier because you'll have something to read on the go. If you're more into adult books instead of YA, I recommend One Day by David Nichols. This is the story of Emma and Dexter, one of my favourite romances in the world. So Emma and Dexter go to the same university, and on graduation night, Emma takes Dexter home with the intention to sleep with him. However, they spend the whole night talking, and when they part to go their separate ways in the morning, they part as friends. This book is set on the same day every single year for about 20 years, and it is what they are getting up to, whether they are together, whether they're on holiday, whether they're living their separate lives. It's just about how these two people remain friends, the struggles in their friendship and relationship, and it's just a really great romance. However, it is intensely emotional. Won't tell you why, you'll have to read it for yourself. Okay, so next I have a selection of books that I personally find very emotional. However, they are part of a series, and a lot of the emotional aspects of this plot hinges on the fact that you are deeply invested in the characters. I know a lot of you won't want to be reading the third book in a series for a readathon, but if you have been reading this series and you are looking to continue or maybe read the next book, one of these series may be able to fit one of the challenges if you are up to that point. So first up we have The Grisha by Leigh Bardugo. I personally think that the last book in this series has a very emotional part, and this one is about a girl who discovers that she has powers, and she's sort of taken away from the war that she was a soldier in to hone these powers, and then there's like a whole greater plot. There is a very good morally grey character in this that everybody loves, as well as like a love square and all sorts of interesting things. I do really enjoy this series, and it does have its emotional points throughout. However, if you have read maybe the first two books in this series, you could definitely pick up the last one to fit the challenges for Sobathon. This is one of the ones where it sort of hinges on you being invested in the characters to really get the emotion, but that's the A Court of Thorns and Roses series by Sarah J Maas. This has a lot of emotional points in it, and you have to love the characters to really feel it, but one of the strong points of this series are the characters, and I know a lot of people do love them. If you have yet to pick up this series or you are partway through, I recommend reading any of the books in this series, as they will all fit for a book that's going to make you cry. Then we have another Sarah J Maas book, and that is Throne of Glass. The emotional aspects of this really hinge on which relationship you're rooting for at the time, but there is a lot of emotion in this. There is a lot of death. There are a lot of parts that are going to move you. So once again, pretty much any book in this series has the ability to make you at least tear up. Then we have Glass Sword by Victoria Aveyard, which is the second book in the Red Queen series, and I also believe that the fourth book, which comes out in May, is going to be pretty emotional. So either of those two will fit the challenges. So if you are partway through this series, I'd recommend picking up one of these. We have The Fate of the Teeling by Erica Johansson, which is the last book in the Teeling series. The ending of this book is one of the perfect examples of an author taking a risk with her characters. It's one of those where the book doesn't end how you want it to, but it's the only way that it could end. So it's kind of bittersweet, and it really, really got me in the heart. So if you have read the first two books in this series, you could definitely read The Fate of the Teeling to fit these challenges. And then lastly, I have the Half Bad series by Sally Green, another one that has an absolutely heartbreaking ending. If you have read the first book in this series and you didn't really like it, I would push through, because I absolutely despised the first book, but the second one was really good, and the third one, the ending absolutely killed me. This also features LGBT characters, and I think the reason people don't like it is because it's in like a gritty UK sort of style of writing, and it's not the pretty magic witches that it makes out it is in the synopsis. But this is about Nathan, who lives in a society where there are good witches and bad witches, and he is a half-breed. His mother was a good witch, his father was a bad witch, and for that he's persecuted, bullied, and treated awfully for it. Very difficult to read, very gritty, but I promise you the end of the last book will rip your soul apart. So that's it for my Sobathon recommendations. Please let me know if you're going to take part in the readathon, and also if you're going to pick up any of these books. Like I said, all the information for the readathon will be in the description below, and I will also have my announcement video linked for you to go check that out. Also, please let me know if you've read any of these and if they destroyed your soul. But that's it for this video. Please don't forget to like this video if you liked it, and subscribe if you want to. You head into the description box below, you'll find a link to my Goodreads, Instagram and Twitter if you'd like to follow me on any of those. as well as a link to my Bookish body butter and candle website, the Instagram for that, and a 10% off discount code. But that's it from me today. Bye! Andy